folks. 250 years. 250 years since a room full of men in Philadelphia looked the most powerful empire on earth dead in the eye and said, "You know what? We're done. We're done with your taxes. We're done with your edicts. We're done with your king, and we are going to build something that has never existed before in the history of human civilization." And they did it. And here we are. Now, and I want you to really sit with this for a moment. Here we are on the 250th birthday of this republic, and what does the creator of the 1619 Project have to say about it? Nikole Hannah-Jones, the woman the New York Times handed a Pulitzer Prize for rewriting American history from scratch, and not in a good way. She has come out and said, my friends, that the entire existence of the United States of America is a crime. I'm not making that up. I have this story right here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Rick, why are we talking about this woman on Independence Day of all days? Why give her the time? And I'll tell you why. Because this is not just some professor nobody's heard of sounding off on social media. This woman's project was published by the New York Times. It was distributed into school curricula across this country. It was endorsed by teachers' unions, bought by school districts with your tax dollars. And now she's telling you, on America's 250th birthday, that this country's very existence is a crime. That is where the American left has arrived, my friends. That is the logical endpoint of everything they have been building toward for 30 years. And I think the American people need to hear it said out loud, plainly, so they understand what the other side actually believes. I'm Rick LeBow. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, so let's talk about Nikole Hannah-Jones. Let's talk about the 1619 Project, and let's talk about what it means that this is the ideological framework that the American left has decided to plant its flag on, no pun intended, on the 250th anniversary of this country. Here's what she said. She said that paying reparations for slavery would amount to admitting that the entire existence of the United States is a crime. Now, the way she meant that, and I want to be fair here, I want to get it right, the way she meant it was as an argument for reparations. Yes, America is a crime, and we should pay for it. That was her point. I want to be careful here, folks. I want to make sure I'm representing her correctly. She meant it as a feature, not a bug. Now, let me tell you something about the 1619 Project that the drive-by media will not tell you. The 1619 Project has been debunked, and I don't use that word loosely, by some of the most respected historians in this country. Historians who are not conservatives, by the way. Gordon Wood, Sean Willents, James McPherson, who literally wrote the definitive book on the Civil War. These are not exactly members of the Rush Hour Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. These are serious, decorated, liberal academics, and they wrote letters. They made public statements. They said the 1619 Project got the history wrong. The New York Times corrected one of its central claims, that the American Revolution was fought to preserve slavery, and they did so quietly, without a headline, without an apology, just changed the wording on the website when nobody was looking. See, that's how they operate. Big splash going in, no acknowledgement coming out. And yet, Nikole Hannah-Jones won the Pulitzer Prize. They still teach from this material, and she is now on television on the 250th birthday of the nation she has spent her career maligning, telling anyone who will listen that America's existence is a crime. Now, I want to make an observation here, my friends, and I want you to think about this carefully. There is a real difference, a profound difference, between saying America has done wrong things and saying America is a wrong thing. Every honest person acknowledges the former. Slavery was a moral catastrophe. The founders knew it. Many of them said so. Jefferson called it a moral and political depravity. They built into this document, the Declaration of Independence, the very seeds of slavery's eventual destruction, because they wrote that all men are created equal. And once you write that down, once you make that the foundation of your republic, the argument is only a matter of time. Lincoln understood that. Frederick Douglass understood that. Douglass, a man who had been enslaved, called the Constitution a glorious liberty document. He looked at the founding and said, "The principles of this thing, if applied honestly, demand my freedom." And he was right, and eventually they did. That's not the story the 1619 Project tells. The 1619 Project looks at a nation of 250 years, the most prosperous, the most free, the most powerful, the most charitable civilization ever to exist on this earth. A nation that fought a war with itself to end slavery, that led the world against Nazism and communism and won. A nation that has been a beacon and a refuge for people fleeing every kind of tyranny for 2.5 centuries. And it says crime. It is a lie. It is a political project dressed up in academic clothing. And the fact that it gets taught to children with your money is one of the great scandals of our time. Now, today, while all of this is going on, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, was at a celebration marking the semi-quincentennial, the 250th. Standing in front of the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the symbols of this republic carved into the landscape of the capital city itself. And I want to just pause on that image for a moment, because that image is the answer to everything Nikole Hannah-Jones has ever written or said. Those men were not perfect, not one of them. Washington owned slaves. Jefferson owned slaves and wrote that all men are created equal, and apparently could not resolve that contradiction in his own lifetime, though history did it for him. Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. They were human beings, flawed, complicated, sometimes hypocritical human beings. And yet what they built, what they argued for, what they fought for, what they died for, was a set of ideas so powerful, so durable, so self-correcting, that 250 years later, we are still here, still free, still arguing about it in public without getting shot by the government for doing so. Name me another country that has done that. Go ahead. I have time. I have all the time in the world. This is the Excellence in Podcasting Network. You cannot name one. Not one country on earth has maintained a constitutional republic of individual liberty and self-government for 250 years. Most of them can't manage 25. You look at the countries that tried to build utopias from scratch. The Soviet Union, Mao's China, Castro's Cuba. And what did you get? Gulags, famines, secret police, mass graves. The complete and total destruction of human dignity in the name of the collective. Those are crimes. America's founding is the greatest single act of political courage and political genius in human history. And I say that not as a partisan, not as a Republican, not as a Trump voter. I say that as someone who has spent decades behind this microphone watching what happens when the principles of this country are honored versus when they are abandoned. The results speak for themselves. So on this Independence Day, the 250th birthday of this extraordinary experiment, my message is simple. Do not let them take this from you. Do not let the 1619 projects and the Nikole Hannah-Joneses and the Al Greens of the world, and we'll get to him in the roundup, oh yes we will, do not let these people tell you that your inheritance is illegitimate. It is not. It is the most legitimate political inheritance any people have ever received. The American flag belongs to everyone who loves this country. There's a Trump-supporting artist at the Great American State Fair painting a 9 by 17-foot Old Glory right now, and he says, and good for him for saying it, the flag belongs to everyone, no matter the party. He's right, and I'd add, The flag belongs to everyone who looks at it and feels pride rather than shame. If you feel shame, the problem isn't the flag. Happy 4th of July, my friends. 250 years. Not bad for a crime. All right, let's hit the roundup. We've got a few things to get through, and I am not going to let you out of here without covering them. First up, Al Green. Democratic Congressman Al Green from Texas. Somebody asked him about the 4th of July today, Independence Day, the 250th anniversary of the Republic, and I kid you not, he used the opportunity to call for the impeachment of Donald Trump. Again! Now, Al Green has introduced articles of impeachment against Trump more times than I've had hot dinners. He did it in the first term. He did it in the second term. He will probably do it from a nursing home someday. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone! Articles of impeachment! This man has one gear, and that gear is impeachment. And it does not matter what the question is. Ask him about fireworks. Impeachment. Ask him about the national anthem, impeachment. Ask him what he wants for his birthday, impeachment. Folks, this is the state of the Democratic Party on the 250th birthday of America. They cannot, even for one day, set aside the rage and say something decent about the country they represent. There were Democrats on the Hill today who expressed concerns about the administration. There were Democrats who pivoted to Washington dysfunction. One of them actually gave a speech about the economy. That would be fine, that's politics, I understand. But Al Green couldn't even fake it for one day. He had to go on television and call for impeachment of the sitting president on the 4th of July. That is not politics. That is a personality disorder.
And by the way, while we're on the subject of the Supreme Court and things Democrats would rather not discuss, the court recently ruled on transgender athletes. Big ruling. And do you know what House Democrats did when reporters asked them about it? They dodged, they weaved, they talked about the economy. One of them, and I am not making this up, said it was all part of culture wars being pushed on the American people. Culture wars. That's the phrase they use when they lose the argument. When they're winning, it's civil rights and historic progress. When the Supreme Court rules against them, suddenly it's all a manufactured distraction, a culture war being inflicted on an innocent public. The American people support keeping biological males out of women's sports. They support it overwhelmingly. Riley Gaines has been saying this for years, while the left called her a bigot and tried to cancel her. The Supreme Court has now weighed in, and House Democrats want to talk about anything, except what the court actually said. That's the tell, folks. When they change the subject, you've already won the argument. Second item in the roundup, and this one I love, Chris Ramsing, Trinidad-born, came to this country legally, built a business in Virginia, the American dream in its most literal form, and he was asked about birthright citizenship, about the practice of people flying into this country specifically to give birth so their child is automatically an American citizen, which is sometimes called birth tourism. And he said, this immigrant, this man who did it right, who went through the process, who waited, who paid the fees, who swore the oath, he said it is a slap in the face. And he is right. Of course he is right. You know who understands American immigration law the best? It's not the professors. It's not the editorial boards. It's not the ACLU. It's the people who actually went through the process. The people who filled out every form, who saved up for every fee, who studied for the citizenship test, who showed up at the courthouse and raised their right hand, those people understand better than anyone what it means when someone just flies in, pops a baby, and walks out with a U.S. birth certificate. The legal immigrants of this country are among the most patriotic people I have ever encountered, and they are fed up, and I do not blame them one bit.
The people who are supposed to be their advocates, the Democratic Party, have abandoned them completely in favor of open borders and a system that rewards line cutting. That's not compassion. That is just the soft bigotry of not caring about rules as long as it benefits you politically. And last, I want to mention, briefly, the Secret Service report, because this one deserves attention even on a holiday. The watchdog found that the Secret Service missed 102 radio calls warning about the shooter at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally in 2024. 102. That is not a lapse. That is not a communication breakdown. That is a systemic, catastrophic institutional failure, and somebody should answer for it. The fact that President Trump is alive is a miracle, and not in any way a product of the protection that was supposed to be provided that day. I hope this gets a full accounting. The American people deserve to know exactly what happened and exactly who dropped the ball. And I mean exactly. My friends, it is the 4th of July, 250 years old. And let me tell you, this country does not look a day over 180. There are people today, and I've been saying this for years, there are people who will tell you that patriotism is naive, that loving your country is something only the simple-minded do, that sophistication requires cynicism, and that anyone who waves a flag without a list of caveats is not thinking hard enough. I reject that entirely. I have thought hard about this country for a very long time, and my conclusion is the same as it was the first time I really thought about it. We are the luckiest people who have ever lived, not because we are better than other people, not because God loves us more than he loves the Australians or the Irish or the Japanese, but because we were handed, by a generation of genuinely extraordinary men, a framework for living free that has no equal in human history, and it still works. Despite everyone who has tried to break it, and Lord knows they have tried, it still works. The courts still function, the elections still happen, the speech is still free enough that Nikole Hannah-Jones can go on television and call the country a crime, and nobody from the government is going to knock on her door tonight. That is the system working. Even when it's being abused, it is working. So tonight, when you watch those fireworks, whatever display your town is putting on, I want you to remember what it cost. What it cost in 1776, what it cost in 1861, what it cost in 1944, what it has cost in every generation since. Freedom is not free. That is not a bumper sticker. That is the most compressed and accurate summary of human history ever written. And we are the inheritors of all of it. Happy birthday, America. We are not done with you yet, not by a long shot. I'm Rick LeBow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow if they let us back on.